The reality is that we all make mistakes. Players make mistakes every game, but great coaches typically don't panic and definitely don't blow up and explode. And I don't think great dads should either.
Welcome to the Dad Central Show, the podcast that helps overwhelmed dads conquer stress, build confidence, and become the father their family brags about. Join Drew Solon, a leadership coach and father of 5, and Ed Gow Jr., a fatherhood advocate and contributor to the Good Men Project, as we guide you through the journey of fatherhood. We'll show you how to connect deeply with your family, manage your time and energy better, and master tools to become the dad you want to be. Let's get started. What if the most important thing happening on the soccer field isn't your child learning how to win, but learning how to handle pressure, emotions, and recovery as a dad? Studies in sports psychology show that parental pressure significantly affects your young athletes' stress, confidence, and emotional recovery. Research on youth soccer parents found that stress often comes from playing time, performance expectations, coaching decisions, and fear of failure, not just for kids, but for parents too. Research also shows that emotionally supportive parenting, warmth, calmness, and encouragement develops greater mental toughness and healthier coping strategies in young adults. So maybe the real game isn't on the field. Maybe it's happening inside us. So today we're going to be talking about what soccer can teach dads about mental fitness, pressure, and recovery. As always, you are watching or listening to Dad Central, a parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. As always, our show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, because when Dove Men Plus Care believe care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. And as always, we'd love to answer some of your questions live on our show. So please email us at podcast@dadcentral.ca. And people may be wondering, what are you guys talking about soccer for? Drew, why are we talking about soccer?
Really? Someone would be wondering that?
Oh, they're going to soccer?
We're hosting the World Cup. This is like a huge deal. It's first in my lifetime that, in Canada or North America, I think that I've seen, well, maybe not North America, but in Canada, we get to host the world for World Cup. I mean, that's pretty cool. Look, I'm not even a huge soccer fan, but I would always watch the World Cup because it's, I don't know, there's something visceral about watching your country on the world stage. And so, yeah, it's cool. I'm excited. I see it all around us. The World Cup marketing is in full swing. I got soccer players' faces on bags of chips. You got Tim Hortons with their world representation of different flavors. You've got, all the commercials. Come on, man. World Cup fever is in the air. I think I might even try and get down to a game.
Yeah, well, where you live, you don't have to deal with World Cup traffic that's in my air. Right.
But hey, it's not like I won't be down there through the city. And besides, honestly, I think it might be cool to be down and see the atmosphere.
Okay, well, maybe we'll switch. Maybe we'll switch during World Cup. I'll go to Kingston. You hang out in Toronto for 2 weeks and see how you like it.
Oh man, isn't World Cup on for like 5 weeks, 6 weeks?
Yeah,
like
it's on for a bit
to almost middle of July, end of July. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get to it. Let's get to it. So we're going to be chatting about today. Soccer reveals the dad mindset, mental fitness under pressure, and then recovery, the skill most dads ignore. So, Drew, let's talk about soccer reveals the dad's mindset. Go for it.
Yeah, and obviously we're using World Cup as the jumping off point. Soccer is on hopefully a lot of people's minds, as it should be with the World Cup. But I mean, this is really applicable to, if you think about any sport that you might be connected to or supporting your children. I think what sport does is it exposes to dads how we handle pressure, control, uncertainty, disappointment, or even identity, right? Identity, I think, is a huge one. But many of us are so not even conscious or aware of how much it impacts us. And I even think about this myself. I've been exploring this the last sort of 2-3 weeks. As a 46-year-old, I take pride in being healthy and physical, and I'm still involved in playing competitive sport. I'm playing competitive baseball with the youngest guy on our team is 21, and I'm like, man, I'm 46. I'm still out there competing, and I've been reflecting on why do I still have this pressure to perform at a high level, and do I still get bummed a little bit? Not nearly like when I was actually competing. Why do I still get bummed if I don't perform well? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm exploring. I think it might be connected to this identity that I've had as an athlete or a former athlete, a high level athlete, all the way through my life. So, anyways, I digress. Not to make it about me, but the reality is the dads who are connected to sports often have a lot of these things going on, and it's impacting how we show up in sport in whatever role that may be. Just as a dad on the sideline, could be as a coach, could be even a direct coach for our particular kids, right? And so, we just want to help dads reflect and be able to be conscious of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and is it supporting the healthiest dynamic for your kid and your relationship with them. And sometimes dads, if you're in a coaching role, you might really want to protect your kid. You could have some fear of failure or judgment, or ultimately, this is what I think most is dads just really care deeply about helping their kids be successful. I feel like that's like the number one thing dads want. So with that, we can have a level of intensity that may not be exactly what our kids need. So ultimately, I think kids don't absorb our advice or our guidance or the things we want to impart to them as much as they absorb our emotional state. So over to you, Ed.
Yeah, and also we want to connect research into this. Studies show that excessive parental pressure in sports can increase anxiety and perfectionism in young athletes, while parental warmth creates healthier psychological development. So, question we have before we exit this part of our conversation is: have you ever realized you care more about the game than you did your child? Just a thought. Let's move next to mental fitness under pressure. Drew, kick it off.
Yeah, we've got a great statement that I think um, to open this, and it's pressure doesn't create character, it reveals emotional habits. Now, you might argue, well, depending on how you perform under pressure, it could be revealing your character. Well, I think it might be revealing the emotional capacity and the emotional resilience you might have through adversity. So, yes, you could argue, but the statement I think still stands. Pressure doesn't create character, it reveals emotional habits. And so we'll say for dads, we really want to encourage you with a couple ideas that you can play around with and see how it works for you in your context, either as a dad or as a coach or just working with anyone who's involved with sports. Number one, stay composed after mistakes. The reality is that we all make mistakes. Players make mistakes every game, but great coaches typically don't panic and definitely don't, blow up and explode. And I don't think great dads should either. What we should be is that calm, steady, reaffirming and reassuring anchor for our children in the midst of a huge emotional storm. If you've ever made a mistake as a dad, you know what it feels like. And then think about what would have helped you the most in recovering from that mistake. Does ridicule, does intensity, does yelling help you, or does something different? And if it's something different, then think about how can I offer that something different also for my children who are in the midst of that. Ed, over to you.
Well, next, emotional regulation is contagious. So kids borrow calm from parents. I love that statement. Kids borrow calm from parents. And again, sideline anxiety transfers instantly. So I'm sure Drew and myself have been at games, and maybe sometimes it's us, but we don't do it that often. But we see parents yelling, screaming at their child or children on the playing field. Doesn't help the child, does not help the child. So again, keep the calmness, keep the calmness. So whatever you show emotionally, your kids are going to copy.
Yeah. Quick story. I went to watch my cousin when he was about 10 or 11. I was at Western still playing football, and he had a tournament in London. So I went down and watched and walked into the arena and, went to sort of to where most of the parents were. I couldn't stand there for more than 5 minutes. I ultimately left and went to the end where there was no one else because I was so sick of the things that I was hearing, these parents yelling for 10 and 11-year-old kids, not only at the kids, the other team, and at the refs. And I mean, I was like a 21-year-old, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is unbelievable. Is this what it's like typically in the stands of games? But at the end of the day, those parents clearly couldn't manage their own emotions. And no wonder we don't have, we have kids growing up who can't manage them when we have parents doing things like that. So, anyways, I digress. Point 3. This is crucial. Performance is not identity. If you are a dad, and I'm going to be pretty blunt here, if you are a dad who is only treating your kid based on how they perform, you are damaging your kid. You are not helping them become the best that they can be. In fact, you're setting them up for a real problem in the rest of their life. Their performance is not who they are. And it should never be conditional upon your love or acceptance based on how they perform. They need to know that no matter how they perform, that you love them, that they're acceptable, that they're cared for, and that they have a safe place at home. So it should never come to how they perform affects how you interact and relate with them. Maybe what's going on is you feel disappointment, or maybe you feel something about your own inadequacy, and therefore it's causing you to then react and take it out on your kids. And I want to say your child needs a safe place after pressure, not another evaluator or judge. Let the coaches deal with that. You be dad so that they can know that it's safe at home.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and just adding on to that, sports psychology research emphasizes that supportive parental behavior improves coping and resilience, while pressure focused involvement increases stress responses.
There you have it.
All right, let's move to our next point segment: recovery, the skill most dads ignore.
Yeah, this is hard. I mean, it took me a long time to learn this as well. Even though I had a kinesiology undergraduate degree, I studied sport performance as part of my university. I was obviously involved in high performance sport myself. Yet I still, even going into the world of work, I tried to apply some of those principles. I still didn't necessarily understand how important this is. More from the side of the mental and emotional rest. I got it with physical stuff, but not the mentally and emotionally. And the reality is that in order to perform at a high level, recovery is crucial. Especially if we're thinking about sports. In soccer, as an example, why we said the World Cup is over a certain period of time is because they need recovery. They need recovery days in between playing games. If they don't have enough recovery, they're impacted, their performance, right? Probably they're being more prone to injury. And, the rest matters, but also having an emotional reset matters. There's intensity, there's excitement, there's energy playing and competing in the sport. And you also need time to recover and recharge your emotional or psychological batteries too. So they need downtime. And so the challenge is that often dads can ourselves or put expectations on our children or our athletes to never slow down, to carry that stress all the time without healthy outlets. We talked about that in our last show. Always saying mentally in the game, like, there's no downtime. We're studying film, we're looking at, data, or we're going back out and refining performance. We're practicing even more. Look, I'm all for hard work, but if it doesn't follow the rest recovery cycle, you're actually leading to more burnout. And the other thing is this is we don't allow time and space or even discussion around processing the emotions related to sport performance or defeat or not making the team or getting demoted from a starter to a not starter or having a conflict within the team. There are so many emotions that go into that, right? So we need time and space for that.
Excellent. So, what recovery looks like for dads? Some examples: quiet reflection, also exercise, friendships, sleep, prayer, meditation, talking honestly, and then disconnecting from performance identity. So, let's have this insight here that a recovered dad responds differently than a depleted dad. And then also, too, your child remembers your presence more than the scoreboard. Drew, before I do a recap, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think we should talk about this idea of dads sometimes only feeling connected to their child through achievement. And if their kid scores goals, then they feel closer to their kid. If their kid's team wins, or they are play a big part in the team winning, or their kid's highly successful, it's very much, you perform and you're loved, kind of what I referenced before. But I think a lot of dads, that's the only way that they feel connected to the kids. They feel a sense of pride.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ed, I think that's an important conversation. Can we just go back and forth a bit here? I'm thinking,
Sure.
have you seen that? Have you had dads maybe express some of those things to you, or have you just been around some of that?
Yeah, it's how can I say, it's a quiet constant. It's something that a lot of dads do and they don't realize it in the moment. It's like in reflection time when I see a lot of that, and when I see it, I try to address it in the real time as much as possible if I'm there assisting a dad. But if not, when I hear that, and a lot of times when they begin to reflect, they realize, you know what? That wasn't the best thing. You know, that lovely term, in the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
right? And but it takes reflection, and asking the dad, what happened, why did it happen, and what can you do better next time?
Yeah, I think that's a great approach, and it's also great to hear that upon reflection, there's a recognition maybe that wasn't the best. So maybe this isn't the dad who's listening right now, but if it is a dad who finds themselves doing that, the way I look at it is this: is that I actually think there's somehow an unmet need that you have as a dad that you're now living through your kid, or is impacting how you see your kid's performance in sports. And that's always, as you like to say, the heart work that's required to free yourself, but also then to free your child from the impacts, the negative, unhealthy impacts of that. Look, I'm all for having high expectations, high standards, and performing to a certain level. But if it comes with a void of love and acceptance, unconditional love and acceptance, then there's going to be a gap, and that gap leads to all sorts of problems. And I saw a bunch of it in a bunch of men over the weekend that I was just at. And the reality is that's the regular, not the exception. And so I think it's really important for dads to recognize that what have you got going on, and this idea of being connected to your kid only through achievement. you know there's work to be done, and I encourage
Mhm.
you to keep finding resources and ways to work through that.
100%. No, 100%. Great reflection there, Drew. So that is it for today. So let's go through what we chatted about. We talked about soccer reveals the dad mindset, mental fitness under pressure. Then we talked about recovery, the skill most dads ignore. So our takeaways from today, three of them. Soccer teaches emotional leadership. Your child is learning how to handle adversity partly by watching you. Then we have pressure is inevitable. Panic is optional. So mentally fit dads learn how to stay grounded under emotional stress. And then number three, recovery is not strength.
No,
No,
recovery is
recovery is
strength.
strength. Sorry. My correction. Recovery is strength, not weakness. So rested, emotionally healthy dads create emotionally safer homes. So Drew, what is a resource we have for our family today?
Yeah, just like having a team makes you better and helps you perform at a higher level. We need community as fathers, because as I learned, and I'm going to borrow this statement, men drift alone, but they thrive together. And the reality is that fatherhood is a challenging, grueling journey. And if you're alone, you are going to ultimately drift or be kind of washed out to sea sometimes, without a hope, if you're trying to do it all by yourself. So Dad Mentor, our father leader community, is that team of fathers who want to grow, who want to connect, who want to actually break cycles and be the best father that they can in the midst of the reality of the pressures of life, without breaking, without cracking, and finding the recovery that they need to be able to get back in the game. So Dad Mentor Father Leader Committee is our resource.
Excellent. So let's close it down here. So the goal isn't to be a perfect sports dad. It's to become the kind of man your child feels safe losing beside. And then, when your child looks into the stands during hard moments, what emotional message are they receiving from you? And then if this episode challenged you, and we hope it did, share it with another dad sitting on the sidelines trying to get this right. So as always, we like to say thank you for taking the most important thing, your time, to hang out with us. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. We'll chat with you soon. Be well.